Hi there, thank you for your essays. I do apologize for the delay because there was a technical issue and I couldn't see your email. So that's the reason why you had to wait for so long. But here I am at last. First, that's the essay about green energy, right? So alternative energy sources have gained great popularity in both Eastern and Western countries over the recent years. Nice. Some believe that green energy has great benefits, such as reduced costs and less damage to the environment, while others argue that it is not a dependable energy source. I personally agree with the latter view. Okay, great. Sounds really good. I can see a very nice introduction to the debate. I can see your position. Simple and very, very accessible. However, try to avoid repeating the same vocabulary. I can say energy sources here, energy source here, energy again. So try to perhaps say energy source in another way. Sources of green energy, ranging from solar power to hydroelectric power and wind energy, argue that renewable energy is not only cost effective but also environmentally friendly. Awesome. Just mind the fact that cost effective is hyphenated, and your sentence is slightly misleading in terms of referencing because you say supporters of green energy ranging from, and this, even though you don't intend it to be like this actually refers to the supporters. I know that you mean the green energy, which is ranging from too, but actually what this additional clause is doing, it describes the subject, supporters. So perhaps you could find another way of saying this, perhaps supporters of green energy, which can be obtained from various by various methods, ranging from to something like this, but you will need more rephrasing. Also, you have a lot of energy. Look at this: one, two, three in one sentence. So try to find another way of saying that. And yes, there is a way of saying that. You simply have to um, mm, so to say, collect more vocabulary and turn the sentence around a bit. Financially, the average costs involved in the installation and operation of wind turbines, power plants, and solar panels are far less than fossil fuels. The average costs involved are far lower than. Okay, you cannot say the average costs are less than fossil fuels. You refer to the costs involved in this and the costs of fossil fuels. So you would have to alter the grammar here slightly. For example, you might say are far lower than those of fossil fuels, and you would say those, by those you mean with the costs, right? Another thing here would be wind turbines and solar panels are great, but power plants are huge, so to say, factories. Well, I know that it's not the perfect synonym, but I'm trying to use another word. Are huge establishments that generate power, and they can generate power from no matter what, be it nuclear resources, sun, wind, water, and so on. So power plants here would need a descriptive word here. For example, power plants fueled by wave energy, something like this. But you would need to say what type of power plants, not just power plants. Furthermore, as generating energy from renewable resources does not lead to any greenhouse emissions, it is better for the wildlife too. Great, absolutely correct. But now, how about a concluding sentence? So you have a great topic sentence. You have a good explanation. Perhaps a more specific example would take you a bit higher on the scale of writing quality, but not bad, really not bad. great use of vocabulary. Just make sure that you avoid saying energy way too frequently. And yes, please do write a concluding sentence to wrap up on this paragraph. However, there are others who believe that the prevalence of green energy poses a threat to our energy security. The central reason behind this is twofold. Okay, firstly, it is argued that carbon-free energy resources do not have the capacity to provide energy for the human population in the long term. Very nice. Really like the way you use vocabulary, and it's very easy to read your sentences. So this means that you are very coherent. For example, an extensive study conducted by Harvard University reveals that the energy generated from green resources in San Francisco can accommodate only 20% of its residents. Okay, perhaps you might mention which ones. Just green resources is not enough. What exactly do they use in terms of sustainable energy? And by the way, sustainable is another very useful topical vocabulary unit in this topic. So, from sustainable resources such as, let's say, wind and solar energy, or eolian and solar power. Secondly, given the increasingly changing weather conditions due to climate change, it would be a big risk to rely on renewable resources as our main energy supply. Therefore, it is conclusively clear that relying on alternative sources can lead our world to an energy crisis. Absolutely brilliant. This is what I call a wonderful paragraph. Seriously, this is absolutely brilliant. The only remark I have here is that this green resources part could have been improved by saying which ones specifically. That would make this paragraph absolutely stellar. But this is absolutely beautiful. Now, in conclusion, I believe that while green energy might be cheaper to install, no, you don't install energy. While green energy installations might be cheaper to set up and more eco-friendly to produce, I don't say not to produce. Well, green energy might be more eco-friendly to produce. It collocates with this part, but it doesn't collocate with the verb install. Okay, so you would have to mention. um, Sorry about that. You would have to mention what you need to install. You install the actual devices that help you generate the energy or capture it. It is not a reliable source of energy and needs to be supplemented with other means, with other types of power. Again, energy all over the place. Again, 3 times here. So, apart from an overuse of the word energy, this is a beautiful essay. Please add a concluding sentence here. The second body paragraph is absolutely beautiful as it is. You do have a concluding sentence. That's why it flows perfectly. You have a great conclusion. However, you take care of the word energy, and this will be absolutely amazing. Let me count the words here. 233. 233. Yes, I did have a feeling that you have kind of few words. So remember, you have to write at least 250 words. So feel free to develop. Feel free to develop your examples. First of all, add a concluding sentence here and perhaps think of expanding your conclusion a bit. And this will be a perfect essay. Now let's have a look at the task 1 answer about the maps, right? This is the before and after, I know. Okay, the 2 maps show grammar. Show the 2 stages of an island before and after a number of changes were implemented. Okay. It is clear the whole island that it's clear that try not to skip the relative pronoun that whenever it is possible, because skipping it when it can be used is sort of conversational, but you are writing an academic text. It's clear that the whole island was connected via footpaths and vehicle tracks after the changes. I wouldn't say was connected. When you say was connected, it means it happened in the past. I would rather say became connected, if you insist. In the west of the island, 6 buildings which were evenly separated by a footpath. 6 buildings evenly separated by a footpath. Okay, I wouldn't say separate. They are not separated. They are located evenly on both sides of a footpath. I would rather say so. Were built for people to live in. You are saying obvious things. You are saying obvious things. Try to say them differently and try to point out how useful the changes were. For example, a number of residential spaces were built, and namely this and that number and so on and so forth. But yes, it's obvious that houses are built for people to live in. And if you say buildings, anything on this map is a building. Like this house is a building. This what looks as a shopping mall is a building, and the hospital or the pharmacy is equally a building. So try to be more specific. All right. In the center of the island, 3 big buildings were constructed and connected with a vehicle track to make them accessible by vehicles. So you repeat yourself. Vehicle. You again say vehicle track. You are still very general, and you say buildings. So obviously you can see that this is different from residential buildings, so it might be something else. So you are free to assume what these are. So you can see shopping mall, hospital, and school, let's say. I don't think it's a school, but nevertheless. Okay. There's also a pier which can be accessed using the footpath from the largest construction in the center. Again, very general. Good vocabulary was no, it's not your vocabulary, it's the vocabulary from the actual picture. In the east, there are 8 houses that are linked to each other via vehicle track. Okay, I think I can see vehicle track third or fourth time. So there's obviously a little issue, well, a bigger issue with the range of vocabulary. You probably had little time to think. On the right side of these buildings, an artificial lake seems to have been formed. Seems? Well, I don't think it seems. It was developed. So, yes, an artificial lake was developed. That is correct. Absolutely correct. Okay. Not form developed, and try to avoid formulations like this when it is factual. It is there. So there is no place for the verb seen. There are fewer trees after the changes. There is no linking words. So perhaps you could say at the same time, after the development, there are fewer trees due to the, I don't know, construction changes and so on. While there were 8 trees prior to the changes, there are only 3 left after the developments. Development's great vocabulary, but you could say this in a shorter sentence, and you don't really need to count the trees. You can say that there is less vegetation after the urban development on the island, but you don't really need to count the trees, trust me. Overall, it is obvious that the island was completely transformed as a result of the changes. Yes, it was. Yes, it was. But you really need to work on your vocabulary command here. Apparently, you had little time because after such a brilliant essay, this task 1 answer is, so to say, okay. I would qualify it as okay. What is the problem here? 1, you might have misinterpreted the visual. Typically, visuals like this depict what is intended to be built. Like this is the plan for development. Like imagine you are an urban developer, and you are in charge of making changes to this island, right? So this is your proposal. So this is what you write, and this is a brief description of the summary of your proposal, right? So it's what is intended to be built. That's why we have the words before and after. It is not a huge mistake to speak of this in the past, but the issue is different. You really have to expand your range of vocabulary here. in terms of construction, vehicle track, being more specific about the central buildings, and so on and so forth. So you sound repetitive. You sound as if you didn't have time to think and develop the most important features. Sometimes you focus on unnecessary detail, like stating the obvious, like houses for living and counting the vegetation units. So in the future, make sure that you dedicate sufficient time and you leave yourself time for revision for task one. So this is what I have to say. Anyway, I can see that you have great style. You have a great command of vocabulary when you have the time and when you can focus. I could see this in your essay. So keep up the great work. Again, apologies for the delay. We didn't intend it to be this way. And hoping to see more of your writing.